Okay, so the latest Pixar film, Luca, dropped on Disney Plus this weekend. I am a massive fan of a large percentage of this studio's output. They've made some truly emotional masterpieces. That's not to say they haven't had their fair share of weak moments too, because oh, believe me, they have. So it's my job to acknowledge those. So today I, the film watcher, shall be ranking all 24 of Pixar's feature films, from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, as I go into this, there are a lot of really, really great movies that Pixar's made, so I couldn't put all of them in like the top 5, even though I wanted to. So, with that said, let's do this. In last place, without a shadow of a doubt, is The Good Dinosaur. I really don't like this movie. It feels like a bad Blue Sky movie. And like Blue Sky made Ice Age, just to give you some perspective there. It doesn't feel like a Pixar movie, despite the fact that the concept is really good. Like dinosaurs having lived beyond when they actually did in history. That sounds amazing. That if I was a little kid, I would have loved this movie based on the concept alone. Then I would have discovered that it's a directionless, boring pile of tedium. They don't really do anything with the concept. It's like they just have human equivalents, like there's farming and cattle herding. Oh, the genius. Where are you going with this, Pixar? The plot is just comprised of little segments here and there, and not all of them correlate to the larger experience. The protagonist is dumb. He's constantly falling over and getting injured. And his relationship with this little kid is ill-defined, because for most of the runtime, the protagonist hates this little boy. The villain is one of the worst villains I've ever seen in an animated film. He sucks. He shows up in like the middle of the movie, and then he disappears. Then he comes back in the third act because they figured they needed a villain. Like, why couldn't the like driving force of conflict just be this giant tidal wave that was already a pretty big force of conflict? Why couldn't that have just been the main threat that the heroes were trying to overcome? Why'd they have to throw in this stupid bad guy? So, overall, it's just a bad movie. The animation is distracting because the dinosaurs look so ridiculously cartoonish, and the landscapes look great and super photorealistic, but they don't mesh well together. It's just a bad movie. Moving on. Number 23, Cars 3. The general consensus for the Cars franchise is that the second one is the worst. I disagree. And here's why. Like, I don't think the concept of talking cars is really that bad. Because, I mean, on paper, it's no more ridiculous than talking fish or talking toys or monsters. But they don't do anything interesting with the fact that they're cars, aside from, like, racing. And, like, humans could race too. In cars. Like, the entire concept of the Toy Story franchise revolves around the characters being toys. There's nothing really that requires these characters to be cars, which is why every single emotional moment attempted in this movie fails miserably. I don't care about Lightning McQueen. I mean, we've been with him for a while, for like 11 years now that this franchise went on, and hopefully it stops here. But anyway, so at least we know Lightning McQueen. I don't know this Cruise person. I don't like her. I can't connect with her because it's so obvious that she idolizes McQueen, and then there's this thing where she like takes his place in the race at the end. What is up with this movie? Everything with Doc Hudson is really good, but the fact that this movie tried to be like a serious, dramatic study of a person who's aged, who doesn't look like he's aged, it just fails on so many levels. So yes, I do not like this movie. Unless I do a Pixar marathon, which I will eventually, I have no intention of ever watching it again. Number 22, Cars 2. Yeah, This movie is just stupid. It's just dumb. Why would you put Mater at the forefront of his own movie? This feels like one of those Mater spin-off shorts that would be released with a much better Pixar movie. But nope, this is a real feature-length Pixar film. For some reason. How do these spy cards not realize that Mater isn't a spy? Are they idiots? Like Mater? Mater is an idiot. How does he not realize that people think he's an idiot? He is a complete moron. It's so unfunny that it's laughable how unfunny this movie is. It just goes for the lowest brow of humor, and it just doesn't work. Also, this movie falls into a lot of tropes of animated films, like the liar reveal story, where Mater reveals he's not a spy. Uh-oh. But, yeah. Also, there's a twist villain. I don't mind the twist villains that Disney's been doing. They do them too much, but I don't mind, like, Hans from Frozen and them. But I hate this guy because it's like he disappears for the whole second half of the movie, and then he comes back as the villain. And he's rarely even seen physically. Like, it's always on news interviews via exposition. So it's such a dumb concept for a sequel. Like, I like Cars 3 slightly less, but at the very least, it feels like a natural continuation of the franchise. This does not feel like a natural continuation of the franchise. This feels like a fan fiction written by a 5-year-old. So yeah, I don't like this movie. Number 21, Cars. Cars is okay. Upon rewatch, like 3 years ago, it was better than I remember it being, but it's just boring. It's a boring movie. Lightning McQueen is really annoying for half of the movie, actually most of the movie. The villain is lame. I guess the side characters are okay. They're not anything special. Aside from Doc Hudson. Doc Hudson is awesome. The racing scenes are really good, and overall, it just kind of feels boring and generic. Like, it doesn't really feel like a Pixar movie. So, especially compared to the movies that they put out before that. Like, it was Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and then Cars. Yeah. It just feels very underwhelming. Anyway, number 20, Ratatouille. I've heard many people talk about how sophisticated and mature this movie is. And while that may be true, on a screenwriting level, on a story level, it is so juvenile. The story doesn't make any sense. It's like this kid, Luigi or whatever his name is, just happens to be Gusto's son. And like, just, what? The story's just held together by a series of convenient scenarios. Also, the concept is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Like, a rat controlling a guy's hair. He's moving his arms like a puppet master by pulling his hair. What if he got a haircut? How does any of this work? Are these people really stupid enough to think that Luigi or whatever his name is just running around like he's like a drunken buffoon, just for no reason? Can they not tell that he's asleep? I don't know. There are a couple things in this movie that I find really good, like the villains, Skinner and Anton Ego. They're like great Pixar villains, and this movie uses them very well. The animation is great. All the cooking scenes are really good. But it's so self-serious, and it goes into a lot of the tropes of animated movies, like the oppressive parent, whoopee. So just, it's not like a bad movie or anything. I still find it good, I guess, but it's not really that appetizing of an experience. Also, this restaurant would be shut down immediately if people found out that rats were there, ever. Number 19, Onward. Onward is fine. It's a good movie. It's perfectly serviceable. I like the two main characters a whole lot. The other characters are just okay. Like, seriously, the bond between Ian and Barley is great, and the stuff with their dad I found truly exceptional, especially the scene at the end. That was, that was a ringer, emotionally speaking. I think the concept is really cool. I like the ending, and the whole climax really is pretty good. But overall, it's just kind of average, mediocre, I guess. The concept is fine, but kind of like The Good Dinosaur, they don't really do anything with it. I don't know. I don't like most of these creatures that they meet along the way, especially these little pixie things, which I just loathe. The subplot with the mom is kind of weird. Like, it just feels very shoehorned in. And the quest feels really dragged out, so overall, it's a perfectly decent movie, but not one of Pixar's better efforts. Number 18, A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life is a charming movie that just has super dull animation. Like, if you look at this animation, it is so boring looking. Like, all the backgrounds feel super washed out, and all the characters look pretty much the same. At least all the ant characters. So, yeah, and also has the liar reveal storyline that I don't mind in this movie as much as I do in, like Cars 2, but here it just feels... It's kind of average. And that's the word I'd use to describe this whole movie. The main characters, like Flick and Ada, are just okay. The side characters are really good. Like the circus bugs, they're hilarious. Overall, I think this is a good movie. The story and setup is pretty clever. The climax is really fun. I think the humor is pretty on point, and it's not like in-your-face jokes. It's more like little quirky reference humor. So overall, it's a solid film. Not one of Pixar's best, but it's pretty good. Number 17, Up. If I was judging Up based on the opening alone, it would probably be in the top 10. But the rest of the movie is kind of just good. It's not bad by any means. It's just, like, the opening is so strong and gut-wrenching that it kind of feels a little weird that the rest of the movie is just passable. It's passable, average entertainment. It's not bad, but the opening just, it promises a lot richer of an experience. You know what I mean? So I think the characters are really good. The like Carl and Russell, I really enjoy the bond between them. Doug is really funny. The villain is fine. I don't get how he's so agile for a 90-year-old. I mean, the fact that it's like a twist that he's the bad guy doesn't really bother me. So yeah, it's a really good movie with a perfect 15 minutes. Yeah, at the beginning there. Yeah, so it's a good movie. Yeah. Number 16, Brave. I've heard so many people put Brave in, like, the bottom tier of Pixar movies. I don't quite agree. I'd say it's probably close to the bottom tier of Pixar movies, but it's not like it's not. I don't think it's that bad of a movie. It's fine. It's good. I really like Merida and her bond and the bond with her mom. And yeah, I enjoyed their relationship. The animation is awesome. I like the whole lore of this world. There's this. It's really slow in the middle. I mean, the first act is really pretty good, and then the ending is really good, but the middle part is pretty slow and mildly tedious at times. The whole tonal shift where she's a bear it doesn't really bother me that much, but I mean it's there. The whole oppressive parent thing is there, but that doesn't really bother me too much. There's some really awesome scenes, The villain in particular is really cool, and his whole backstory is just so interesting. So it's not like a bad movie, but it's not that great of a movie either. Number 15, Monsters University. I really like Monsters University. It's good. It holds up pretty well because I had so much nostalgia for this movie. I have a poster on my wall of it right over there. I loved this movie when I first saw it as a little kid. I don't really love it now. I'd say I like it. The story is kind of typical and a little predictable, but I still think it's a charming movie. I like seeing Mike and Sully come together. I like these the side characters. The villain is kind of lamely written, but the voice of Nathan Fillion kind of helps fill in the gaps of him. The scare games I think is a pretty fun storyline. So yeah, it's a solid film that just kind of it doesn't really do the original that much justice, but it's not really that bad or anything. Anyway, number 14. Very mixed up here. Incredibles 2. Speaking of sequels that aren't as good as the original but are still good on their own, Incredibles 2 is one of those. It's a good movie. The twist villain is not good. I think her motivations make a lot of sense, but it's so predictable. Like, the minute she stumbles in there and drops a bunch of papers, it's like, oh yeah, she's the villain. Or, I figured when I first saw this movie, it was either her brother, her, or the two of them working together. That last one was the main choice in my head. But, yeah, it was kind of obvious that she was going to be the bad guy. I think Dash is annoying in this movie. His voice really irks me, and I don't know why. But the other characters are still really good. Of course, Helen and Bob and Violet, they're all really good. Jack is infinitely more funny than he was in the last movie. He's hysterical. Like the scene where he fights the raccoon, that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Not really. You know what I mean. The action is gorgeous. The animation is great. I think the use of color in this movie is near perfect. So it's a really good movie. Yeah, I like the building of the world that it did, continuing on the mythology of the first one. And while it is nowhere near as good as the first movie, it's still a really good film. Number 13, Soul. Soul is a difficult movie to talk about. I've only seen it one time. I really liked it that one time, but it is a lot to digest, and it gives you a lot to think about. I think the life lessons taught in this movie are really, really impactful and really important. And they really make you think. So it's a very intellectual film, and I think that works to its advantage. It's a really good movie with really good characters. Now, it does have a couple problems. I think the whole thing with it is like, two opposites getting stuck somewhere and having to go back, that we've seen many times in Pixar before. The thing where Joe turned into a cat was kind of dumb at first. I was like, oh no, really? But it didn't bother me all that much, surprisingly. And then the way Joe died was kind of stupid, like falling into a sewer. Like, when they showed that in the trailer, I was like, oh, that's just going to be a throwaway joke. That's not actually how he dies. And no, it is. I don't really like that. Anyway, but overall, I think this is a really solid film. The animation and music are amazing. Truly some of the best in any Pixar film. The ending is really, really good. Overall, it's a great movie. It really does give you a lot to think about. Number 12, Coco. I have more problems with Coco than I do with Soul. The whole thing where it's like Miguel is wondering if he and Ernesto are connected. It's like, oh, I think we might be connected somehow. It's just like, are you trying to trick us, audience? Movie? Anyway. I don't like that Ernesto's whole plan is revealed by some random cousin of Miguel's. In fact, I wish Miguel's whole family got more development. Like, the ones that the movie focuses on are great. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the ones that they don't focus on just feel like filler characters. Like Miguel's parents. They're barely in the movie. I don't even know their names. Do they even have names? What's up with that? I don't get why Frida Kahlo is in this movie. I don't get it at all. I don't like Dante. I think he's very not funny. Not at all. But Coco really makes up for its blunders with some truly transcendent elements. The relationship between Miguel and Hector is so beautiful and so well defined. They spend so much time on these two's relationship. And it's not just them. It's Imelda as well. You know, you'd think I wouldn't connect with Imelda as much, like this old dead lady who doesn't want her great grandson to sing. Like, okay, why would I connect with her that much? Because she's really shown it's really shown how her motivations work. She likes to sing. She does it all the time, or at least she used to. But she just feels so betrayed. And it makes her all the more relatable. It makes her relate to Miguel all more. And I think Ernesto is a phenomenal twist villain. I think he's revealed early enough that you can really connect with him as a villain. You understand why he did what he did, because he's kind of a superficial celebrity who does a lot of things for attention, and I just think he works really well. The animation is stunning, and the design of the whole dead world is masterful. I think the music in this movie is amazing. Like, the song that they play at the end has been stuck in my head since I saw the movie like 4 years ago. It's just a really great movie. I love it, though it does have some issues. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Number 11, Finding Dory. Finding Dory is a movie that, in my opinion, receives a lot of hate that's not all that deserved. Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah, it follows the original story beats pretty closely, and it's an awfully similar type journey, but I still love this movie. I think Dory works really well as a lead character, and unlike in movies like, I don't know, Cars 2, it feels like a reasonable thematic continuation of the franchise to make Dory the lead character of this movie. Unlike in Cars 2, where they just did it for some reason to sell more toys than made or something like that. So, yeah, I think Marlin and Nemo are great, except for the scene where Marlin yells at Dory. That seems a little weird. The emotional beats in this film are awesome. Not quite as good as those of the original, but still great. I love the new characters. The climax is ridiculous, but I kind of love it for that reason alone. And overall, it's just a really charming and delightful film. So, yeah, I really like it. Number 10, Toy Story 4. When I first saw this movie, I thought it was the best of the Toy Story franchise. Looking back on it and having seen it more times, I don't really think that anymore. I still think it's great, don't get me wrong. But there are a couple things that hold it back. The original characters are really pushed to the side, and I mean, I wish they'd either given them more screen time or not given them as much screen time, because now it just feels like they're trying to appeal to the people who still love the original characters, but they want to tell a completely separate story that doesn't really involve them that much. So that was a little weird. Also, Buzz's inner voice thing, where he does the inner voice thing, it was just kind of dumb, and I don't really like it. Everything else in this movie is amazing. The idea of a Toy Story 4 after the powerhouse of an ending that the third one had doesn't seem all that necessary, but this movie convinces you that it has a right to exist. It's a brilliant thematic continuation of the franchise. Woody's character arc is even stronger than that of his in the other movies, and I just think it goes so well with what has been set up 25 years prior to this movie came out in the first movie, Woody is still the exact same character. Buzz is still the exact same character, aside from the inner voicing that didn't make sense. Bo Peep is not the same character, but it feels like something that she would do. It doesn't feel like they totally rewrote the character, but it feels like a natural continuation of the one that we saw in Toy Story 2. The new characters are all hysterical, especially Keanu Reeves from Canada. He was funny. The villain is one of the most sympathetic and awesome since Lotso. The animation is gorgeous and the action is perfectly done, and the ending is just so masterful. So overall, I really love this movie. It's not as good as the other films in the franchise, but it's still a great film that is fully worthy of existing. Number 9, Luca, latest Pixar film. I don't know what I was expecting for this movie, because on the one hand, the animation looked so different from what Pixar had done before, and the story seemed a little basic. And admittedly, yeah, the story is kind of basic, but I feel like that's where Luca finds its sweet spot and really gets to bring all the charm out of it. This is such a great movie. I think the story at the beginning feels a little bit too much like The Little Mermaid, but I don't even care. This is a great movie. I love this quirky little trio of Luca, Alberto, and Julia. I love the bond between them. I like how this town kind of just accepts that they're sea monsters. Like, that didn't really bother me that much. The villain is hilarious. He's like a stylish Italian Gaston. Speaking of Italian, this movie is fully engrossed in Italian culture. And being a person of Italian descent, it's nice to see that kind of thing done. I think the music in this movie is amazing. The animation is gorgeous, and the cartoony designs actually really worked for me, because everything was kind of over the top and in the style, unlike The Good Dinosaur, where only the characters were over the top, not the backgrounds. It's just such a great movie. I think the emotional moments and comedic moments work equally well, and if Pixar keeps making movies this good, I have no reason to complain about them ever again. Unless they keep making stuff like Cars 2. Anyway, number 8, Inside Out. Yeah, Luca is not as good as Inside Out. This movie is an emotional masterpiece. It's awesome. Every single character is great. Joy is an amazing character. I love her relationship with Sadness, and I like that this movie isn't afraid to express the power of, negative feelings. It's okay to have negative feelings. If you want to get angry, get angry. This movie perfectly promotes that. It doesn't shove its message in your face. It just allows the emotional moments to breathe and be what they are. Also, this movie has some insanely creative stuff. Like, the subconscious thing was just genius, especially with the giant fat clown. Jeez, that thing was thick. Anyway, and then the whole dream set thing, that was so cool. Everything in this movie, it's just genius. The ending is really powerful. The animation is gorgeous, and I love how creative this movie can get. It's just an amazing movie from top to bottom. Number 7, WALL-E. I have more problems with WALL-E than I do with Inside Out. That being the villain. Like, I don't think he's that great of an antagonist. He's not a bad antagonist, but why couldn't Fred Willard, that character, had been like programmed into Otto, and he be kind of the retroactive villain of this movie, where he's not actually there, as he's been dead for like 700 years, but he's kind of there through Otto. I feel like that would have made for a better villain, but the one that we have is fine. But still, this is such a good movie. The first half is like a silent film. It's all subtlety. it genuinely feels like a movie that was made in the 1960s. That's how great this movie is. Like, the subtlety is magnificent. Wally and Eve are such fun and likable characters, and I don't get how Pixar was able to make you associate with these almost completely mute characters. Like, they're amazing. And every character is great. The captain, Mo. Mo is hilarious. I need to see a spin-off where it's just Mo saying Mo. Anyway, this is an amazing movie. The first half is truly transcendent. The second half is just really fun. I think the climax is great. The ending is so sad, where it's like, you think that Wally might not remember something, and it's like, it's so sad. This movie is truly amazing. Number 6, Toy Story, the first Pixar movie. The only negative about this movie is that the humans look kind of dated. I can't really say that the animation looks that dated because, A, this was the first CG animated film ever, so, I can excuse that. But yeah, the humans don't look that good. Everything else in this movie is perfect. It is a truly magnificent experience. It's amazing. I love every second of it. The characters are all hysterical, from Woody to Buzz to everyone else. And the fact that the characters aren't really likable is kind of what makes them likable. This movie is also, it's just really funny. Like, Woody's rant, I have memorized that rant. I could recite it from memory. You are a toy! It's so funny. Anyway, I think Sid is a great antagonist. I think all the environments in this movie work really well. The emotional beats are amazing. The climax is hilarious, where it's like, I love this movie. It's amazing. So, yeah. Number 5, Monsters, Inc. This is a clever concept, like The Good Dinosaur or Onward, but done in a way that is good and is funny. Like, they're not malicious creatures. They don't want to kill anybody. They're just doing their jobs. They do them really well. So, I love this movie so much. Not only does it have one of the greatest Pixar duos of all time, not only does it have one of the greatest sets of villains of all time, not only does it have a beautiful relationship between a little girl and a grown man, not only does it have great animation, not only does it have a brilliant concept, but it's hilarious. This movie is really funny, and a lot of it is due to the delivery from the two main actors, John Goodman and Billy Crystal, who are perfectly cast in this movie. They're like, if you show me a picture of Mike and Sully, I could not imagine any other two voices coming out of it. Like, I don't even mind in Monsters University that they sound a lot older than they did. It's just, like, I don't even care, because they couldn't have anyone else be those characters. It's an amazing movie. The villains are great. The relationship between Sully and Boo escalates in a normal and relatable manner. The ending scene is just such a masterpiece of filmmaking. The animation is great. As I said, the concept is awesome. The action is fun. Overall, it's just a great movie. Number 4, Toy Story 3. What's wrong with Toy Story 3? I don't mean this in a bad way. There is nothing wrong with Toy Story 3. It's an amazing movie. It has a gripping story. Unlike in Toy Story 4, the original characters do not feel pushed to the side at all. They take center stage. And they make room for some already great other characters. This movie pulls off having the original characters and the new great characters at the same time. And it has a good balance of all of them. It has one of the best villains in Pixar history, Lotso. He's just awesome. The whole prison escape plan is ridiculously creative. I love every character's specific arc in this movie, especially Woody. The climax and the ending are some of the most powerful things I've ever seen. Like, for a second, you think they're actually gonna murder the toys. I mean, I didn't think that because I was like 5 years old when I saw this movie in the theaters, but Man, now it is sad. I've seen this movie like a million times, and I still, every time I watch the scene, I think, no, don't die, have the clock come down. Just, and then the ending is just a masterpiece. It's amazing. It's a truly magnificent movie, and it fully earns its existence. Number 3, Toy Story 2. I've seen many people put this at the bottom of their lists, and I don't really get that. It's amazing. It's a great movie. It has some great storytelling with the stuff that they do with Woody, and some really fun adventure with the stuff that they do with Buzz. Everything about both of these stories is amazing. Also, this movie's hilarious. It manages to have some seriously dramatic and gut-wrenching moments, while also having some really funny scenes. It's just a great movie. The villain in Stinky Pete is awesome. The new characters aren't as plentiful as they are in Toy Story 3, but they leave a long-lasting impact on the franchise, like especially Jessie. There are some truly emotional scenes in this movie, like the "When Somebody Loved Me" moment. Just, it's such a great sequel. It continues on the theme set up in the original in such a natural and beautiful way. This movie is phenomenal. It's one of the best sequels I've ever seen, and one of the few that I can really say is better than the original. Much better than the original. Okay, maybe not much better, but better than the original, for sure. Number 2, Finding Nemo. I love Finding Nemo so much. The main character, Marlin, is probably my favorite Pixar character of all time. He's amazing. He's hilarious, and he's emotional. He's a vulnerable man. And Albert Brooks' delivery just, it helps this character's humor so much. I love Dory. I think she's hysterical. Every single side character in this movie is amazing. Every single one of them. They're all really funny. Like Crush the Turtle, the entire Tank Gang, the School of Fish voiced by John Ratzenberger. Every single character is magnificent. The score is amazing. Just, oh my god, this movie is awesome. The animation is stunning. I think the emotional moments hit perfectly, and they come at just the right times. Like the moment where Marlin figures out that his son might be dead. Just, oh, it's so sad. Just the look of sheer shock on his face. And then he just swims away. That confrontation between Marlin and Dory is one of the best things I've ever seen in any animated movie. It is a truly magnificent film that I'll always love. But number 1, The Incredibles. I love The Incredibles. Now, when I was a little kid, I never really got what was being hinted at with Bob and Helen's relationship. I do now. In fact, I didn't until like 2 years ago, but it's an amazing movie. The script is one of the best I've ever seen in an animated movie. This movie was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars. If an animated movie now got nominated for that category, no, it wouldn't even happen. I can't even imagine such a thing. But here, it did. And it's deserved, because this movie has one of the best scripts I've ever seen in an animated movie. The characters are all insanely likable. This movie has great explorations of midlife crises and toxic dishonesty. This movie, it handles all of it so well. My favorite character actually might be Helen, or Frozen. I love Bob, though, still. I can't pick a favorite character in this movie. They're all amazing. All the kids are really good and well done. I think Syndrome is the best Pixar villain of all time. He's so cartoonishly hammy while also being a genuine threat. The animation is stunning. The action sequences are some of the greatest in any superhero movie. You know what? This is the best superhero movie of all time. It's amazing. Everything about this movie works so well. The use of dullness in the color scheme works perfectly because Bob is really in the state of mediocrity. And he just wants to recapture the fame of what he used to be. It's an astounding film that has some great themes. So, yes, it is my number one Pixar movie of all time. And I highly doubt that that will change anytime soon. So, whew, thank you guys for watching. And remember to keep calm